Hi, it's Mo Bunnell, your host here at Real Relationships, Real Revenue. I'm author of The Snowball System, and I and my teams have trained over 15,000 experts all over the world on sound, efficient, authentic business development techniques. I'm recording just a super fun episode here where I'm recapping 4 episodes that I taped with Josh Linkner. Josh is author of several books. One of them is Big Little Breakthroughs, which we dug deep into in the 4 episodes that are before this one. If you haven't listened to those, if you're starting with this one, go back and listen to those after this because they are really good. I really hit it off with Josh. I loved his way of thinking, and I thought he had a lot of broad, applicable ideas that are relevant to you, our audience. People with one foot in the delivery of a complex, expert-driven service and one foot in retention and growth in business development activities. And in this episode, I'm going to recap my top 3 things that I really enjoyed learning from Josh. And the top 3 things happen to be the things I think you should pay attention to as a member of our audience, because we're all in the same boat together. Now, before I get to the top 3 things, know that if you want our newsletter that gives you our top ideas on how to grow your book of business, grow your relationships, and grow your career, then just go to growbigplaybook.com. That's growbigplaybook.com. You'll not only get an instant download that gives you the 8 beliefs you should download into your head about growth, but then you'll get our weekly newsletter just packed full of our complimentary courses, the things you should be thinking about, cutting edge ways of thinking about how you can achieve more when it comes to business development. Okay, let's get into it. So here are the top 3 things that I really enjoyed hearing from Josh. These things were so aligned with our teachings that are in our book, The Snowball System, that are in our Grow Big training that teaches every single skill a professional needs to be great at growth, great at business development. And the first thing I really liked how Josh said this. He said, don't forget the dinner mint. Don't forget the dinner mint. That's sort of fun to say. And the idea is that a little element of surprise and delight, like the dinner mint given that you're not expecting, that you didn't pay for, that it's the end of a meal, it has a really big effect, much larger than the time it took to grab the dinner mint out of the box or the fact that it only cost a few cents. It's the fact that it was a surprise and it was a delightful little add-on. That's where all the power is. Now, I didn't go into it deeply into the episode because I really want the focus to be on our guests when we're talking to them. But it reminded me of a study I haven't thought of in a while. I don't remember the researchers. I didn't go back and dig that up. It doesn't matter. But here is the basic nut of the research. They actually tested the power of dinner mints. And they tested in a control group, what does a tip look like if you don't give anything, any surprise and delight at the end of a meal? Well, that gives you your baseline level. That's the control group. They did 2 experimental groups. One was when a dinner mint was given after the meal, but before the check was delivered. If you're going to give a dinner mint, that's the optimal time to do it. A lot of people deliver it with the check. It actually has more impact when people can sort of savor it and enjoy it, the researchers thought, than when you actually bring the check itself. And it has a big impact. Like, I forget the ROI on the cost of the dinner mint relative to the size of the tip, but it was ridiculous, basically infinite. The dinner mint doesn't cost much, and it results in a much higher tip. But I thought this was interesting. They also tested in a second experimental group, what does it look like if a dinner mint is given after the meal's over, before the check's delivered, and then a second dinner mint is given when the check is delivered, in it for everybody at the table. Boy, you talk about surprise and delight. If you were surprised at one, you're really surprised at the second one. Nobody does that. And that resulted in another step up in tip. My guess is it's largely subconscious. All the research shows that bad is stronger than good, that bad things disproportionately outweigh good things. Well, what that does is it gives us the power of little good things have a big weight because they're unexpected, because they're surprise and delight kind of elements. So if we can pile up those little surprise and delights, we can weather the storm of when a bad thing happens. If I remember right from the bad is stronger than good study by Roy Baumeister, it depends on the context, but bad can be 4-1 relative to the good, 7-1. If I remember right, being, and I might have this wrong, but in a marriage, bad is stronger than good, like at 13-to-1 ratio. So for some reason, when we get married and we're around our spouse all the time and they do something wrong, it's even worse than when a friend does the same exact thing. I guess that's a side note. We'll have to start a different podcast about marital relations. That's a little out of scope. The idea is that we want to build up these surprise and delight little add-ons because A, they are massively overweighted relative to the same amount of effort that's expected when it's expected. And B, we need to do them because eventually something's going to go wrong. And when something goes wrong, it has more heft than the little things we did right. So we need a lot of little extras to really deepen relationships and create a wow kind of experience. Some of the things that you can do, I want to get super practical here, in our expert-driven world, the surprise and delight, I don't think is the jar of nuts around the holidays. That's sort of expected. So a lot of just the actual the phrasing of "don't forget the dinner" can make us think of sending swag to a client or sending food around the holidays or things like that. I actually think the biggest valuable things that fall into the "don't forget the dinner" ideal is little things we can do that helps our clients succeed both on a professional level and a personal level. So once somebody signs the contract, that is the perfect time to add on little added extras that you're going to do that expand scope, that are unexpected but don't cost anymore. And I gave some examples in one of the episodes with Josh, but they're little things typically that could be around a more innovative way to do something. Maybe it's a little better way to deliver the output, a little more fancy way of delivering the report, little things that have innovation. A second bucket of things is analytics. I gave this example in the episode. I want to do it again, though. Instead of having static numbers that are printed out in a PDF or an in-person printed piece of paper, gosh, could we make the analytics move? Could we make the numbers move? Could we create a model in Excel that let the client and you play with assumptions and really dig into the data? That somebody that has an analytical mind would go crazy over that. A bigger version of that would be taking things from Excel and writing some software so that when you gifted some analytic advice to somebody before you're hired, when you're creating demand, we call that a give to get. Maybe it's really sexy, like it looks really cool, and you can deliver 100 hours of value with 2 hours of work because your model is so robust and it packs such a punch. It adds so much value. So analytics or expertise is another way that we can add little extras, a little dinner mint. The third bucket I'll give you is process. So are there little things like speeding up the timeline of creating, of making it easier on their team, of removing steps for them, reducing the number of hours, anything around speeding up the process or removing some of their effort? That would be more procedural kinds of dinner mints. The last one I'll say is relational. What are ways, ask yourself this, what are ways I can help this person personally based on what I've learned about them? Josh gave the little example of sending over an article about something. What about a book? What about introducing them to somebody? Just the offer of these things is going to have value. It's the thought that counts idea. And you don't even if they don't accept the offer, you can offer it. So those are things that help them personally, or it could be professionally. The other way would be bringing other people into the project that have a lot of heft. Having a senior executive attend a meeting when they weren't really expected, but just wanted to say, hey, we really care about this project. We really care about you. I just want to attend this kickoff meeting just to tell you that. And if that was done almost by surprise or at the last minute, or specifically it wasn't expected as part of the contract, then boy, could that be valuable. Flying in an expert instead of being on Zoom, having somebody from another continent where they're staying up late. One of our mantras is the currency of relationships is time. So in this particular area, having somebody spend their time, either your time investing in the client or another expert's time investing in a client, could be incredibly valuable. So these little dinner men ideas fall into 4 buckets, which of course, if you know the Herman brain dominance instrument, you saw my Easter egg there. because it aligns with that. But they could be little innovations. They could be enhanced analytics. They could be procedural changes that are of benefit to the client, or they could be relationship oriented for them or from us as the relationship leader or somebody else on the team. Those 4 buckets are the perfect ways to think about dinner mints that you can offer. Okay, the second thing that Josh mentioned that I really liked was this idea of opening a test kitchen. I can't tell you how many breakthroughs I've had personally by tweaking things. So just tweaking things all the time, specifically measuring the results is the key. So I'll give you a simple example. We used to give webinars as a way to meet new people. We would call that lead generation, or in Snowball System, the whole chapter on lead generation is called Lead Tactics, an entire chapter packed with 15 methods on how you can meet the right new people and specific signs and steps to get there. So one of the ways we drink our own champagne on this stuff, is webinars. Well, we used to give a webinar, and then at the end of the webinar, offer some free training to people that's delivered via email, videos, downloads, really, really powerful stuff that we can sign them up for. Well, we tested a difference one time. Here's the old and the new. We opened a test kitchen on this. So the old was, let's say you get 100 people sign up for a webinar, you work with a partner, maybe it's an association or something, you get 100 sign up, 100 people sign up. Well, with webinars, you're lucky to get 40% attendance rate on the day of. That's pretty normal. If you get 50, that's a massive home run. All of a sudden, your number's cut in half. So let's say 40 out of 100 actually sign up. Well, we've tested every single way of offering the training at the end for people to sign up, and maybe you get 10%. If you're lucky, you get 20. Just killer would be like another 40% that sign up for that. Well, if you start with 100 people that said they wanted to be a part of the webinar, and then you take 40% of that, and let's just say we hit a massive home run and 40% of those people sign up for the training. You added a bunch of value in the webinar, but the half-life for that is fast. People forget, they go on to the next thing. It's signing up for the training that's the real magic, because that's where now they've got your email, they've got a relationship with you, things like that. So if you take our 100, 40% of that, 40% of that, and I think these are pretty not normal, ambitious assumptions. But even if that happens, you've got 16 people that took you up on the what we would call a give to get, some kind of additional value add that adds more value and deepens the relationship. Most importantly, starts the dialogue going. So you got 16. Well, in our test kitchen, we tested one time, what if we just told people we don't do those webinars at no cost anymore unless we take everybody that signed up for the webinar and we actually give them the free email, video, download, super powerful training up front. Then we have the webinar, and that helps them, which it does, 100% authentic. It helps them because they have this common experience of the asynchronous learning. Now they come to the synchronous event, fired up, ready to ask questions. And the experience is 10 times, and I'm not exaggerating, 10 times as good as when you start with the content cold. And we get higher acceptance rates. More people attend. In our numbers, 50 to 60% attend when they've actually got the content up front. But the key is 100 people now out of the 100 have signed up for the training and already gotten it by the time that you do the webinar. So not only do you have a better webinar, but we went from 16 out of 100 signing up for the next step to actually getting 100 out of 100 signing up for the next step. And then when you offer a next step after that, it's deeper, farther, higher rate of acceptance, things like that. So that one little tweak massively changed how we use webinars as a lead generation tool. I could give you dozens of examples, but the key is to never be satisfied. Always tweak what you're doing. Tweak the questions you're asking. Tweak the time period you're asking. Tweak the automation you're building. Tweak anything you can about your process all the time, from meeting new people to deepening relationships, to creating demand, to building the project or whatever you sell, whatever you promote together, to closing the deal and expanding from there. View that as a business process and think, what area is the thing I want to experiment with now, and focus on one thing, do it really well, open that test kitchen, fine tune that, go to the next, and never quit. Just like a high-performing athlete would never not be trying new things, nutrition, recovery, workouts, gameplay, mindfulness. Everything about their game, they'd always be tweaking, and it would be fluid, and they'd be measuring and figuring out what can work better. I want you to do the same thing. Open that test kitchen, think of business development as a business process, and think about whatever you're not happy with now, start experimenting to try something different. And by the way, the entire comprehensive system around business development is in the Snowball system. So there'll be a chapter on whatever aspect of that you want to work on. More value for you. Okay, third thing. I really loved this. Fall in love with the problem. It is so easy for us as experts to fall in love with our solutions. I struggle with it. Everybody struggles with it. We got a thing. We love the thing. We're really good at the thing. It's hard not to jump to the thing. But we can have a lot of fluidity and a lot of experimentation and a lot of strategic optimization, whatever we want to call it, of how we deploy the thing. The process, our expertise, what we do, there's a best practice for that, for sure. But there's almost always little extras we can do for one client or another that really take that core best practice process that we know works. We don't have to deviate from what works, but we can add little things to it that really make it unique. So if we can fall in love with the problem, and if we can figure out what the client really needs, which may not even mean us, it might be recommending to somebody else, but if it is us, then the question is, what can we deliver that still is going to be streamlined, work for us, have absolutely flawless execution because we know we haven't deviated too far. But what are those little things we can do around the edges that make it feel really unique, A, and B, how can we use, this is important, how can we use their priorities in their words to describe it, as opposed to using our jargon and inside our organization's nomenclature to describe it. So I think those two things are important. Tweaking little things around the edges, and A, and B, describing what we do with their priorities and their words in mind, instead of in our jargon or our nomenclature. And just those two little things, while we still might be delivering 90 or 95% of the same thing that we do for others, it really feels like it's enormously different, or to the recipient, to the decision maker, really feels unique to them because of those little things we added and because they heard their priorities and their words as we described it. So I hope that's helpful. Those three big things. Just don't forget the dinner mint. I loved how Josh said that. Open the test kitchen, and then falling in love with the problem, not the solution. Those three big things were the three things I really got in my interviews with Josh. Loved his energy. Loved the ideas and concepts and big little breakthroughs. I can't wait to read it. It's just not out yet. Wish I could have read it by now, but I've already ordered it, and I just can't wait to dive in when it comes out. And I hope you'll join me. So, hey, thanks for this episode. Thanks for watching this episode of Real Relationships, Real Revenue. Hope this was helpful to you. Share it with others. If it was, this particular series with Josh might be really good to share with teams to get everybody on the same page about how you're using big little breakthroughs to succeed. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.